Welcome to the 11th module for the Global DARE Foundation Patient Collaborator Training Series. My name is Mousumi Bose, and I will be your narrator throughout these training modules to help you become an active patient collaborator in ongoing and upcoming research for adult refsum disease. In this module, we'll explore the process of translational research and how scientific discoveries are transformed into real-world treatments and healthcare practices. We'll walk you through the major stages of translational research, including preclinical research, clinical implementation research, and public health research. We'll also examine an adult refsum disease case study to see how all of these concepts apply in practice and conclude with resources that can help you learn more about translational science. So let's start with just a little description on what translational research is. So translational research is the process of turning scientific discoveries into real-world treatments and health solutions. It connects findings from the laboratory, clinic, and community to develop interventions that can ultimately improve patient care. For example, in adult refsum disease, researchers observed that high phytanic acid levels in the blood were linked to worsening neurological symptoms in the disorder. And this led to studies on dietary management and new therapeutic approaches. I'll expand on this example later in this module. Translational science focuses on making the treatment development process faster and more effective. Right now, developing a new treatment can take anywhere from 10 to 15 years, and unfortunately, most potential treatments never make it to patients. This is especially important in rare diseases where many conditions still have no approved therapies. Translational science and research works to improve this process by creating better disease models, improving clinical trial design, and identifying shared disease mechanisms that can help accelerate the development of multiple treatments all at once. So as I mentioned earlier, translational research is the step-by-step process of turning scientific discoveries into real-world health solutions. And it begins with basic research where scientists study the underlying biology of a disease to understand what's happening at the cellular and the molecular level. The next stage is preclinical research, where potential treatments are tested in laboratory models to evaluate safety and potential effectiveness. If those results are promising, then this process moves into the stage of clinical research, where treatments are tested in humans. Once shown to be effective, these therapies move into clinical implementation, becoming part of routine patient care, while public health research, that next stage, looks at the broader impact on different communities. Importantly, patient involvement is central throughout this entire process, helping to ensure that research stays focused on meaningful outcomes. So let's dig into these stages a little bit more. So starting with basic research, this is the foundation for all translational science and research, as well as the foundation for the overall development of treatments for human conditions. This basic research stage focuses on scientific exploration to better understand the basic mechanisms behind biology, disease, and even behavior. In rare diseases like adult refsum disease, basic research helps scientists uncover what is happening at the cellular, molecular, and genetic level. These discoveries create the knowledge needed to guide future preclinical and clinical research, while insights from later stages can also help shape new basic research questions. So once a potential treatment is discovered in these early stages, before that treatment can be tested in people, it first needs to go through the stage of preclinical research. This is the stage that helps bridge what we learned in basic science with real-world medical applications. Researchers develop and test potential interventions to better understand a disease and explore possible treatments. This work may involve cell studies, animal models, tissue samples, or even computer simulations to evaluate how long a drug, device, or diagnostic tool might perform before moving into human clinical trials. Preclinical research also includes several supporting areas that help move potential treatments closer to real-world use. For example, assay development creates reliable tests to measure how a treatment is working, while data science and informatics help researchers organize and analyze large amounts of research data. Platform technologies provide tools that can be adapted for multiple therapies, and stem cell research offers models to better study disease processes. Taken together, all of these areas support therapeutic discovery and help identify promising treatments before they move into human testing. Once a treatment shows promise in preclinical research, the next major step is clinical trials and other clinical research, but scientists and researchers can't move straight into testing in humans. First, they need evidence that the treatment has the potential to work, appears reasonably safe, and has enough scientific support to justify human testing. Then these clinical trials and clinical research help answer key questions such as the safest dose, possible side effects, whether the treatment is actually effective, and most importantly, whether it leads to meaningful improvement for patients. It's really important to remember that not every treatment that looks promising in the lab or in animal models or other disease models will succeed in human studies. So, once a potential treatment shows promise in preclinical research, and that's looking at both effectiveness, safety, as well as the other points that I brought up in the previous slide, that next step is doing clinical research, which eventually leads to clinical trials. And these are studies that involve humans as subjects to better understand whether or not an intervention is safe and effective. Clinical research helps generate the evidence that's needed for approval from regulatory agencies like the FDA, while also improving our understanding of human disease and refining new technologies. So this stage of research can involve observational research, behavioral studies, clinical trials, and other health outcome studies. All of these together are aimed at determining what truly works for patients in real-world settings. So, once a treatment has been shown to be safe and effective throughout the clinical research and the clinical trial process, the next step is clinical implementation research. This stage focuses on bringing interventions and treatments that have been supported by clinical trials into routine healthcare practice and understanding how they work in real-world settings. Researchers evaluate clinical trial results, identify remaining gaps or challenges, and determine the best way to deliver these treatments to patients. Community participation is essential during this stage, and studies in clinical implementation research often compare different treatment approaches to find the most effective option for patient care. So once the appropriate implementation approaches for new treatments have been identified, then the research starts to center more on public health. So public health focuses on understanding how diseases affect larger populations and how our efforts to prevent, diagnose, and treat them make a real difference in these patient populations. In rare diseases like adult refsum disease, this means looking beyond individual patients to evaluate how well current interventions are working across the community. Public health research also helps identify gaps in care, monitor long-term outcomes, and guide the development of better strategies to improve health on a broader scale. So this graphic highlights the important role that patients and families as collaborators play throughout the entire translational research process. Patient and other family collaborators bring lived experiences that help researchers better understand the real-world impact of a disease. They can help identify the needs that matter most to patients, and this can provide really important insight on study design. They obviously can participate in the research and then share feedback about treatments and outcomes. By contributing their perspectives and experiences, patients and families help ensure that research remains focused on meaningful goals and ultimately leads to solutions that improve quality of life. Patient and family involvement is valuable at every single stage of translational research, and not just during the clinical trials. Because patient collaboration can be useful and crucial even in the early stages at discovery and understanding the disease, where researchers learn what causes these diseases and how it affects the body. Patient collaboration is necessary when potential treatments are being developed and tested in the laboratory to try to identify what needs to be measured. If the treatment is shown to be safe and effective at the preclinical level, then the clinical trials is what pushes it towards pushes these treatments towards regulatory review and allow it to become available to a broader population of patients. And importantly, this process, it doesn't end there. Researchers continue to learn from real-world patient experiences, which can lead to improvements in care and inspire new discoveries. While this graphic is shown as a series of steps, this research is often an ongoing cycle rather than a straight line. An adult refsum disease is a great example of how translational research evolves over time. For adult refsum disease, it began with the clinical discovery of patients experiencing similar symptoms, particularly neurological symptoms, which led to the first description of the adult refsum condition. Researchers later identified elevated phytanic acid as the metabolic cause and connected symptom development to impaired phytanic acid breakdown. Basic research then uncovered the role of genes like the phytanyl-CoA hydroxylase enzyme gene, helping scientists understand the disease mechanism. These discoveries translated into clinical care through dietary phytanic acid restriction and blood monitoring, while current research is now focused on biomarkers, gene therapy, and other targeted treatments. So as we move towards the closing of this module, I wanted to highlight some translational science resources that help explain how treatments move from an idea in the lab to therapies used in patient care. The tools that you see provided here, such as the drug discovery and development map for small molecules and biologics, they build on some of the graphics, the more simpler graphics that I have presented here earlier, but they provide a much more detailed visual roadmap of the treatment development process within the context of translational research. And it's resources like these that can help patient and family collaborators better understand where a potential therapy is in the development, in its development, and how research progresses from discovery to real-world applications. This YouTube video that I have provided a link for here is another sort of just quick description of translational research, and I really I really like this video because it highlights, exactly what I've shared here, how research moves through these multiple stages from basic laboratory studies to testing to implementation and patient care. But it also emphasizes that collaboration among researchers, clinicians, patients, and communities, and how essential it is for bringing new treatments and interventions to the populations that really need them. So to wrap up, I will repeat that translational research is what helps turn scientific discoveries into real-world treatments that can improve patient care. We've seen that this process happens step by step, but from understanding the biology of a disease to testing potential treatments in preclinical models and eventually evaluating them in clinical studies. It's also important to remember that not every promising discovery becomes a successful therapy, which is why careful research is so essential, especially for rare diseases like adult refsum disease. Progress in research depends on strong collaboration between researchers, clinicians, patients, and families. Looking ahead, our training series continues with a few modules designed to help deepen your understanding and engagement in rare disease research, specifically focusing on adult refsum. Coming up next, we will focus on the research funding process and what role it plays in supporting scientific research. Thank you so much for your time today. I encourage you to complete the survey that's linked to this module, and I'm excited to continue guiding you through these upcoming modules. I'll see you in the next module. If you'd like to learn more or have any questions, you can reach out directly to the Global DARE Foundation. For more information about translational research, please go to the NCATS link that is presented here on this slide.